Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio. Brought to you by OnPay, Atlanta's new standard in payroll. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Atlanta Business Radio, and this is going to be a good one. But before we get started, it's important to recognize our sponsor, OnPay. Without them, we can't be sharing these important stories. Today on Atlanta Business Radio, we have Steve Latham with Canopy. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, thank you, Lee. Great to be here.
I'm so excited to learn what you're up to. Tell us a little bit about Canopy. How you serving folks?
Sure. So Canopy is a software solution, remote monitoring and management solution that we sell primarily to service providers that are responsible for managing uptime and availability for large distributed networks of unattended solutions, like device solutions that are out in the marketplace.
Now, you've been around for a while, but people might not know you as Canopy. Can you talk about the rebranding from Banyan Hills?
Sure. Yeah. So the company we just celebrated our 10th year anniversary in August. And I started the business 10 years ago under the banner Banyan Hills Technologies, which was, at the time, we always had a vision to go build a software platform that ultimately became Canopy. But the way that the business was started and funded, we first created a services business, consulting services, where we went out to the market, and we did primarily technology consulting, customer-facing solutions around where we built proprietary software products for customers, anything in exchange for revenue to ultimately fund the R&D necessary to build this software platform, Canopy. And so, as I said, that started 10 years ago, and about 3 years in, we had enough of the product and the platform built to where we could take it to market. And then for a period of time, we ran effectively two businesses. One was the consulting services, and then we were really spawning the Canopy business, which was a software platform business. And then post-pandemic, we made the decision to really focus in, now that Canopy had gained some traction in the market, we really wanted to double down on Canopy and really chase that part of the business. It's a highly attractive business that's had a lot of success. So what we did is we shed the services part of the company, and then probably did the most difficult thing that I think we've done in over the last decade, which is really transitioned out of the mindset of services and consulting into being a true software product company. And this latest rebrand that we announced here a couple of weeks ago, where Canopy is now the banner of the company and Banyan has sort of gone away, was almost the final step to really realizing the full, complete vision of now everybody inside of the company is fully focused on Canopy and serving our customers with that technology.
Now, can you talk about how you do these kind of monumental shifts? Like when you started, you mentioned that being a service company was kind of an means to an end. And then you have Canopy up and running, but Banyan Hills was still such a well-respected and a thriving company. And then now you're shifting gears to put, all the chips on Canopy as a platform, which is it's a different business than a service providing business in a lot of ways. So what was kind of how'd you come up with, number one, these kind of shifts? And I'm sure you looked ahead in your crystal ball and said, this is where we have to be. But how do you bring everybody on board that have been so invested in the previous iteration of your venture and then get them kind of involved in belief in this new mission and this new, it might have, the same cast, but it's a different mission and a different objective? Yeah.
Thank you for that question. I love that question for lots of different reasons. I think the truth is that Canopy has always been the overarching vision. Even before the company Banyan was incorporated, I was, as a part of our 10-year anniversary, I went back and found all the napkin sketches and the roadmap for what the business was going to be. And this idea of a remote monitoring and management software platform was the focus. And I think along the way, my team and I were always very, very transparent about what our objective was. I can think of service companies that we did business with that was very strategic for them. And I was upfront with them about what my personal journey was for this business and what we were aiming to achieve. And so Canopy was always there in the forefront, and everybody that's been a part of the company, both customers and employees, they've always understood that was the goal. But then I would say, the other part of your question that I really like is it made me think for a second, how did I manage these big turns? And truthfully, a lot of the shifts that we had to make, I definitely underestimated the complexity. And there is a part of me that says, boy, if I knew how complicated and what a significant investment of emotional and physical capital it would take to do some of these turns, would I have chosen to do it? And so I think some blind optimism probably contributed to the fact that I wasn't nervous about doing it. I knew that through resilience and keeping a focus on Canopy as the target, that we could ultimately get there. And that probably gave me strength through some of those difficult turns. I think the answer to the question, if I ask myself, would I do it again? The answer is probably yes, because I love the journey, and I don't regret anything that we've gone through. But definitely, if I was advising a young entrepreneur that had high aspirations like this, I would give them some insight as to some of the complexity and maybe the things around the corner that they might not be thinking about, just to try to give them a better chance at success.
Well, I would think that, like, as a leader and the visionary, this probably is, I don't want to say simple, but in your head, mentally, it's not that difficult to make that leap, right? You're like, oh, this is the new path. This is how we're going to do this. I get that. But your team and all these people who have invested, months, years of their life with Banyan and have skills that maybe are uniquely Banyan skills, they don't know how they fit into this, and that maybe it's a little harder for them to flip that switch and then, say, okay, let's go boldly forward. Canopy's the way we're doing this, and I'm going to have to relearn some stuff, or I'm going to have to do some stuff differently, or different things are going to be expected of me.
That is so true. And I think the along the way, there were skill sets that were recalibrated. There's no question that when we look at the relationships that we have with our customers or our strategic partners today, that consulting services is a big part of our value proposition, because the software that is Canopy, coupled with the expertise that our team has around remote monitoring and management and getting value out of an effective implementation, requires some level of consulting service. So for those in the business that have been here for the entire ride, they simply, not simply, I don't want to oversimplify it because it was a big shift for them, but they had to recalibrate their skills to be Canopy-related services instead of services that at times took the form of, we're going to help advise you on how to build an enterprise data warehouse or a mobile platform to support a particular use case for your business. And, I think if they were on this call, if they were participating, what they would tell you is they got a lot of relief out of narrowing their focus on the services front to be just focused on how to make Canopy successful for our customers, as opposed to having to be spread so wide across multiple disciplines, multiple industries, and solutions. So then I think the other thing is that there were moments, and I've reflected on this quite a bit. There's moments where the mission and the objective that is to get to Canopy and to scale that business, there were moments where people did leave the company because part of their core value proposition themselves as an employee didn't fit as well. And so I think that did cause, and those were moments that were clearly difficult. I'd like for everybody that had been on this ride to stay with us for the entire time. But I do think that those kind of big shifts force changes that can cause that kind of outcome.
Now, do you think it's a competitive advantage as a platform to have this kind of foundational strength in being a service provider and being kind of in the weeds of all these services and needs and desires from the customer from that lens as you build out a platform that's obviously trying to serve that community and solve their problems, where you intimately know where a lot of the landmines and a lot of the problems and the friction is?
Yeah, another great question. That's pretty insightful. I didn't really have this perspective until probably a month or so ago, but my experience has been really strong consulting services DNA, having to shift and change into a product company and to really shift the identity and the way that we report on metrics within the business, the way that we think about our go-to-market strategy. And my focus has been, and my reflection has been like, wow, that's really much more difficult than I thought it was. And someone that I'm close to that advises the business about a month ago, who was involved in a software product company that had a very successful ride. We all know the brand that this person was with, had a very successful ride all the way through. And what he was sharing with me was they had built a software product and they had taken it to market and they had scaled quickly, and they ended up doing big enterprise deals and realizing in those enterprise deals, they would sell the software, and then the buyer turned around and said, okay, now that we've purchased the software, how do we implement it? How do we make it create the value that you've sold us on? And they had this realization that they were missing a services component to their business that really is success oriented. We pair up with you. We know our software really well. We know how to facilitate the change management inside of your business so that you can get the value out of the product. And so they almost had the reverse problem that we did. And he was making the observation, you guys are light years ahead, because a lot of the services mentality that you'll need as you scale up and do more and more large enterprise deals, you're going to walk in with a service mentality that will help differentiate you from some of the competitors that maybe are less involved with that.
Right, because they're getting the platform, but they have now the intelligence partner that can help them just wring the most juice out of it.
Yeah. It's, software's great. It's a great business, but honestly, it's only really, really maximized when you pair it with great intellectual capital, and experience to make it effective for the customer. You need to understand their business problem. You need to understand how the product needs to be tuned, or at least get them to the point to where they have that perspective. And so I think services is always going to be an important part of our focus. And I think more and more, as we think about our roadmap and where we're taking the product, we do have aspirations to make the product Canopy have some of that intellectual capital built in so that it's easier for customers to take advantage of the technology without our human capital. But, my perspective is, and I think there's lots of things and areas of opportunity within our product to do that. But I do think that that portion, services and our experience, is always something that we'll carry forward with us.
Yeah, you've heard so many horror stories of big investments in software, and then all of a sudden now you got these services bills that are attached to that you didn't anticipate. You didn't realize how much was involved. So the more you can add services to it, the more value you're providing to your customer, and the happier the customer, and the longer they'll be around. That's
right. Yeah, I think that the the truth is the business that we're in is remote management is especially what I like to think of as next generation remote monitoring and management is really complicated. Because if you just think about an operator today that has a physical presence and the amount of technology that's being introduced into their environments, whether it's security and access control or new innovative products that are doing things like sensing environmentals about that space or traffic, sensors and smart technology that's being put into these places. If you think back to the operator, in order for all of that technology to breathe and in order to get the value back to the business operator, it has to be functioning. And there's so many things that can go wrong. People interact with that technology and they can knock it out of service. Network connections can go up and down and be sporadic. And so as more and more of that technology gets into these environments, the technology that is responsible for monitoring and providing remote central visibility, but also the ability to remotely resurrect that technology is becoming increasingly important. And to continue our conversation that we're just having, thinking about helping someone get their arms around the scope of that problem and then to tune a product like Canopy to maximize uptime, that oftentimes requires some experience. You have to draw on some people that have been there, done that, and I think we have a lot of pride in that.
And I would imagine that your customers don't have those subject matter experts on the team a lot of the times, or at least the number they need that you probably have, all around your office.
Right. I think that's true. If you look around the makeup of our team here at Canopy, these are people that have built some of the largest unattended solution networks in the world and operated them at scale. And so they have those life lessons to take back to customers that are beginning that journey. And what we see a lot of times is a customer will develop a solution that they can deploy, and there's high value in that solution. They will put it into the market, and it's producing value for the market that they serve. And they do it once, and then they scale it up to 10, and they scale it up to 100. And every blip, every increase in the size of their deployment introduces new complexities. You start to have failures that you didn't expect. And the way that they solve that initially typically is just through people. They throw more people through things like break fix, field service, by dispatching technicians to go fix those solutions, or they create massive contact centers that can take the calls that are coming in from people trying to use that technology. And they get to the point to where they realize they're scaling their organizations to the point to where it's becoming cost ineffective. And then they start looking for, how do we tame this complexity? And that's really, that intersection is typically where we come in and get involved to try to help rationalize some of that.
Now, is there a story you can share? Maybe don't name the name of the company, but maybe the problem they were trying to solve, and were you able to kind of make a big difference for them?
Yeah, there's lots and lots of fun stories that we have here along the way where we've done that. Some of my more recent favorite stories. Probably just because they're more recent, we helped a solution provider that sells into they have a really neat solution where they're streaming high school sports, and it's all automated. So it's a broadcast of high school sports with that's on premise without human operators. And so it's all technology based. And they scaled very quickly because the demand around remote viewing of the high school sports across all sports really has gone up dramatically, particularly through the pandemic. And then once that ability was there, it's like, boy, this is great. so that we can view those sports. But as we were talking about earlier, you scale that really quickly and you lay down a lot of technology, really innovative, smart technology to facilitate that sort of operation. Stuff will go wrong, naturally, whether it's human induced or if it's weather induced or if it's just pure technology ages and breaks. And so as they scaled their operation and started to hit some of those breaking points, they really needed something to, pun intended, a canopy to sit over the top of that large network of unattended solutions to start to look for common points of failure so that they could identify them before the problem became fatal, where it created downtime, and so that we could address it and keep their solution up and running. And they very, very successful in terms of, there's these moments along the journey with them that were so fun where the first big, like maybe spiking the football in the end zone, was just seeing all of their locations on a single pane of glass on a map, and then in a view where they could look at all of those locations and say, wow, okay, boy, our network really has grown to a significant scale. And more importantly, then to start to calculate the status around those individual sites and their availability and readiness to go stream the sports. And once we started to paint those pictures, then they can really tune their operation to go focus in on those locations that maybe are about to go into a streaming experience, and they want to really give them a higher level of visibility and support to make sure that the experience happens as they intend to. And the benefits it's been dramatic. I think now they are at a point where they see all those locations, they've tuned, they understand the status of the location relative to when it's about to stream, and they have the remote management capabilities to, if there's a problem, then they can start to resolve it, which obviously increases efficiency of uptime. It decreases their need to dispatch technicians to go on site, which can be expensive and it could be long. So lots of success metrics out of that example.
Wow, that's amazing. So what do you need more of? How can we help you?
I think the things that when we look into the future and how we continue to grow, I feel like I'm so proud of the team's ability to have made the shift that we made, that we just discussed earlier. I'm so proud of the branding and the product and the product capabilities that it has. The results that we're driving for our customers is, I think it's sort of undisputed. And I think we just need more visibility, more at bats, for those solution operators that are out there managing these large networks of complicated solutions that need and would like to have central visibility. We would just like the opportunity to talk to them and have the chance to show them the impact that we could make through the implementation of Canopy. So it's really about getting increased visibility, helping the market understand that there is something out there to help them, and facilitating a conversation with us so that we could help.
So if somebody wants to learn more, where should they go?
Several places. So our website, www.gocanopy.com. You'll have a chance to do a review of the product. There's a chance there to contact us through the site. I'm also fully accessible, as is my team. I'm Steve.Latham at gocanopy.com. LinkedIn is always a great way to get in touch with us. You can find my LinkedIn profile. You can find the company's LinkedIn profile and contact us there as well.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for sharing your story today. You're doing important work, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Lee. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk.
All right, this is Lee Cantor. We'll see you all next time on Atlanta Business Radio.